data types, and conversion. Data types are the different kinds of data we can store in a variable. Remember how we compared a variable to a box? Data is like the contents of the box, like the random stuff you put in there for storage. So the first data type we'll be talking about is the string. Strings are a sequence of characters, such as a word, phrase, or sentence. It's basically plain text. We need to use quotation marks when we're dealing with strings. This would print Fred and potato chips on our console. Let's try again. This time, let's use the input functions that we learned earlier. Here, enter your name is a string that will be printed on the console so that users can input data. We can use other variables and strings too. This lets users input data. Let's move on to the next data type, numbers. Python supports integers and floating point numbers. They're defined as int and float. What's the difference then? The presence of a decimal point, of course. So an integer would be 5, while a floating point number would be 5.0. Let's try to print ourselves some numbers. First, let's talk about age, which is usually signified by a whole number. Let's declare a variable using my_age and input your age. This should print 22 on the console, and this is our example of an integer. Let's do one for floating numbers. For example, I have 305 pesos and 25 centavos right now. I could write it like this. Don't forget, when we're dealing with numbers, you won't be needing quotation marks, unlike strings. You can also store booleans into your variables. Booleans have a true or false value which is necessary in programming. Consider the variable is_hot. For example, it's been raining all day and you're about to freeze your bones off. What's the answer then? Booleans can also be used for numbers. Consider these. This would print false, false, and true on the console. We can use built-in functions to convert one data type into another. Remember the int function that we used last lesson? We'll use it to convert a float value into an integer value, or a whole number. We have our floating number, 73.605. Let's convert it into an integer or a whole number. Let's use the int function. Put a value within the parentheses. This will print 73. The decimal part of the value has been removed. This time, let's convert an integer into a floating number by using the float function for our integer, 36. Put a value within the parentheses. This will add a decimal point and a 0 to turn 36 into a floating number. How about converting an integer into a string value? Is that even possible? Well, not in the way you'd think. Let's give it a shot. Input an integer within the parentheses, like so. This will produce 5,250. Since we use the str function, it is a string now, even if there's no visible change. The tuple method is used to convert a string into a tuple. This will print every individual character of our string. The list function is used to convert a string into a list. Like the tuple method, this will print every individual character in a sequence. And that's all for this lesson. In this video, we learned about strings, numbers, booleans, and data conversions. See you next time!